The afternoon sun streamed through the wide windows of Lincoln High School's advanced physics classroom, casting long golden rectangles across polished desktops. Hannah Kim sat in the third row, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her focus absolute as she solved the problem on her tablet. Around her, 23 other students, the school's brightest, tapped styluses against screens, occasionally sighing or muttering formulas under their breath. Outside the classroom door, a man in an unremarkable gray suit paused. To the casual observer, he might have been a substitute teacher, or perhaps a parent. But the subtle earpiece and the way his eyes methodically scanned the room betrayed a different purpose. Special Agent David Park of the FBI had been watching Hannah Kim for 3 weeks now, ever since the anomaly was first detected. His phone vibrated silently. The text message was brief. Subject exhibits pattern Alpha 7 again. Anomalous Intelligence Division requires updated neural maps. Park nodded imperceptibly and continued his surveillance. Inside, Hannah felt a familiar prickling sensation at the back of her neck, the feeling of being watched. She'd grown accustomed to it lately, though she couldn't explain why. Glancing up, she caught a glimpse of the man outside before he stepped away from the door. Something about him seemed familiar, like she'd seen him before, perhaps in the parking lot last week, or near the library the day before. "Time's up," announced Ms. Winters, the physics teacher. "Hannah, would you like to share your solution to the gradient flux problem?" Hannah stood, her movements fluid and confident despite the unease she felt. "The answer is 3.72 x 10⁻⁶ teslas per meter squared," she said, her voice clear in the quiet classroom. Ms. Winters raised an eyebrow. "That's correct. And your approach?" "I used a modified version of the Nakamura-Torres equation," Hannah explained, walking to the interactive board at the front of the class. With a few quick strokes, she outlined a series of calculations that made several students exchange bewildered glances. "But there's actually an error in the problem as stated. The boundary conditions assume a closed system, but the plasma containment field would leak energy at these temperatures, so the actual gradient would gradually decrease over time." A heavy silence fell over the classroom. Ms. Winters stared at Hannah, then at the board, her expression shifting from confusion to astonishment. "Hannah, that's graduate-level work. The Nakamura-Torres equation isn't even in our curriculum." Hannah blinked, suddenly aware of how quiet the room had become. I read about it online," she said, the explanation sounding weak even to her own ears. How had she known that equation? It had simply appeared in her mind, complete with applications and limitations, as though she'd studied it for years. Outside, Agent Park was already sending another message. Subject demonstrated knowledge beyond educational level. Recommend immediate consultation with Dr. Vasquez. Hannah returned to her seat, heart pounding. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Last week in calculus, theorems she'd never studied had flowed from her pen. The month before, she'd corrected her chemistry teacher on the binding properties of a newly synthesized molecule that shouldn't have been in any high school textbook. As the final bell rang and students filed out, Hannah felt a strange buzzing in her mind, like static electricity. For a moment, unfamiliar symbols flashed before her eyes. Not mathematical notation she recognized, but something both alien and intuitively comprehensible. She gripped the edge of her desk, waiting for the sensation to pass. "Hannah, are you feeling all right?" Ms. Winters approached, concern evident in her voice. "I'm fine," Hannah managed, gathering her books. "Just a headache." As she walked through the crowded hallway toward her locker, Hannah caught glimpses of unfamiliar adults positioned throughout the school. A woman near the water fountain, pretending to check her phone. A man by the exit doors, seemingly waiting for someone, all watching her with careful, measured glances. Something was happening to her, And whatever it was, others had noticed. The Lee family home sat on a quiet street, lined with maple trees, its modern architecture softened by well-tended gardens. Inside, the evening routine played out as it had for the past 7 years, since Hannah had come to live with them as a foster child and eventually become their adopted daughter. Dr. Minho Lee, a professor of comparative literature at the local university, was setting the table while his wife Grace, a nurse practitioner, finished preparing dinner. Their son Danny, 14 and perpetually hungry, hovered near the stove, attempting to steal a piece of broccoli. "Hannah's late," Grace noted, checking the time. "She texted she was on her way an hour ago." Minho frowned, adjusting his glasses. Perhaps the debate team meeting ran long. The front door opened, and Hannah entered, her expression distant, preoccupied. "There you are," Grace said, relief evident in her voice. "Everything okay?" Hannah nodded, dropping her backpack by the stairs. "Sorry. I stopped at the library." The lie came easily, though it made her stomach twist with guilt. In truth, she'd been walking aimlessly through the park, trying to make sense of the strange phenomena occurring with increasing frequency, the mathematical insights that came from nowhere, the sensation of being watched, the strange symbols that flashed in her mind. Over dinner, Hannah picked at her food, half listening to Danny's enthusiastic recap of his soccer practice. Her mind was elsewhere, puzzling over equations and concepts that seemed to materialize fully formed in her consciousness. "Hannah?" Minho's voice cut through her thoughts. "Ms. Winters called today. She mentioned you've been doing exceptional work in physics. Beyond exceptional, actually." Hannah looked up, seeing the mixture of pride and concern in her adoptive father's eyes. "It's not a big deal," she said. "I've been studying ahead." "She said you corrected an error in a problem that she wouldn't have caught herself," Grace added. "That you're solving graduate-level problems." "I just got lucky," Hannah insisted, feeling a prickle of anxiety. "I read something about it online." Minho and Grace exchanged a glance that Hannah couldn't quite interpret. "We're proud of you," Minho said finally. "But if anything is troubling you, you know you can talk to us." Hannah nodded, guilt churning in her stomach. How could she explain what was happening when she didn't understand it herself? How equations and formulas seemed to write themselves in her mind. How sometimes she would look at a problem and simply know the answer without working through the steps. Later that night, as Hannah sat at her desk attempting to focus on her calculus homework, a text message from an unknown number appeared on her phone. "We know what you are. We can help. Come to the science building tomorrow after school. Room 237. Hannah stared at the message, a chill running down her spine. What did they mean? "What you are." Her finger hovered over the delete button, but instead, she found herself saving the message. Whatever was happening, she needed answers. Outside the Lee family home, Agent Park sat in an unmarked car, watching the upstairs window, where Hannah's light remained on long past midnight. On the passenger seat beside him lay a file labeled Anomalous Intelligence Division, Potential Keeper Protocol. Inside was a photograph of Hannah, along with brain scans showing patterns of neural activity that no human brain should be capable of producing. The next morning brought rain, heavy drops hammering against the school's windows as Hannah sat through her morning classes, distracted and anxious. The text message weighed on her mind, along with the strange sensations that continued to intensify. Twice during American history, mathematical formulas for predictive social models had superimposed themselves over her vision, as though they were projections only she could see. At lunch, she sat alone, picking at a sandwich she had no appetite for. Across the cafeteria, she noticed a woman she didn't recognize, too old to be a student, too casually dressed to be a teacher, watching her. When their eyes met, the woman didn't look away, but gave a small nod, as though confirming something. Hannah's phone vibrated with another text from the unknown number. "We're waiting. Room 237, after final bell." As the school day ended, Hannah found herself standing outside room 237 in the science building. The door was unmarked, and according to the school map, the room was used for storage. Taking a deep breath, she knocked. The door opened to reveal a woman in her 40s, with dark hair streaked with silver, wearing a lab coat over casual clothes. "Hannah," she said, her voice warm with a hint of an accent. "Spanish, perhaps?" "I'm Dr. Alina Vasquez. Please come in." The room inside bore little resemblance to a storage closet. Equipment hummed along the walls, machines Hannah recognized as advanced neural imaging devices. Others, completely unfamiliar to her. In the center stood a reclining chair surrounded by curved panels, like a high-tech dental examination setup. "What is this place?" Hannah asked, remaining near the door, ready to flee if necessary. "How do you know who I am?" "This is a mobile research unit," Dr. Vasquez explained, gesturing toward the chair. "And we know about you because you've been exhibiting certain capabilities that caught our attention." "Who's we?" Hannah demanded. As if on cue, the door opened again, and the man in the gray suit, Agent Park, entered, along with a younger woman with short dark hair and the professional bearing that matched his. "I'm Special Agent David Park, FBI," he said, showing his badge. "This is my colleague, Special Agent Lisa Cho. We're part of a specialized division that monitors unusual phenomena." "You've been watching me," Hannah said, the realization settling into certainty. "At school, outside my house." "Yes," Agent Park admitted without apology. "Your neural patterns triggered our systems 3 weeks ago, when your school administered routine cognitive assessments. You scored in ways that our algorithms flagged as statistically impossible." "What does that mean?" Hannah asked, though a part of her already knew, had perhaps always known, that she was different. "It means," Dr. Vasquez said gently, "that your brain is operating in ways no human brain should be capable of. And we believe we know why." She approached a computer terminal and pulled up a 3-dimensional brain scan, rotating it to show Hannah. "This is your brain, from the school's cognitive scan. These patterns here." She pointed to areas lit up in bright colors. "Match theoretical models we've been studying for decades." "Models of what?" Hannah whispered. Dr. Vasquez met her eyes. "Non-human intelligence." The words hung in the air between them, simultaneously absurd and revelatory. Hannah wanted to laugh, to dismiss the idea outright. But something deeper, something that had always felt slightly out of place in her own skin, resonated with the truth of it. "You're suggesting I'm—" "What?" "An alien." The word felt ridiculous leaving her mouth. "Not exactly." Agent Cho spoke for the first time, her voice matter-of-fact. "We believe you're what we call a keeper, a non-human consciousness preserved within a human form. There have been others, throughout history, rare individuals who demonstrated inexplicable knowledge or abilities." Hannah's legs felt weak. She sank into a nearby chair, mind racing. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Dr. Vasquez asked quietly. "Haven't you always felt different? Haven't you experienced knowledge appearing in your mind? Complex concepts you've never studied? Haven't you sometimes looked at the stars and felt a longing you couldn't explain?" Hannah's breath caught. Those exact feelings had haunted her for years, the strange familiarity she felt when studying astronomy, the inexplicable sadness that sometimes overwhelmed her when looking at the night sky. "If what you're saying is true," she said slowly, "then what, am I really?" "That's what we hope to discover," Dr. Vasquez said, gesturing to the examination chair. "With your permission, we'd like to perform a more detailed neural scan. It might help unlock memories that have been dormant." Hannah hesitated, looking between the 3 adults. "Does my family know about this?" Agent Park shook his head. National security protocols prevent disclosure to civilians unless absolutely necessary. They're my family, Hannah insisted. They have a right to know. Once we understand more about your situation, we can discuss involving your family, Agent Cho said, her tone softening slightly. But first, we need to confirm our hypothesis. Hannah looked at the chair, at the machines surrounding it. Everything in her logical mind rejected this scenario as absurd. And yet, something deeper recognized the truth in their words. She thought of the equations appearing in her mind, the strange symbols, the feeling of otherness that had always accompanied her. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's do the scan." The procedure itself was painless. Electrodes attached to her scalp. A series of questions. Images flashed on screens surrounding her. Hannah answered automatically, her mind drifting in and out of awareness as the machines hummed around her. Then, suddenly, a jolt, like electricity but not painful, shot through her mind, and images flooded her consciousness. A vast room filled with light, walls covered in symbols like those that had been appearing in her visions. Beings moving with fluid grace, communicating in patterns of thought rather than sound. A terrible threat approaching, massive ships, mechanical and implacable, consuming everything in their path. And then darkness, a sensation of fleeing, of consciousness being preserved and hidden, embedded within a compatible species on a distant planet. Earth. Hannah gasped, sitting upright as the images faded. Dr. Vasquez was staring at a monitor, her expression a mixture of awe and vindication. "Remarkable," she whispered. "The neural pathways are activating. Hannah, what did you see?" "I saw—" Hannah struggled to articulate the fragments of memory. "A place, not Earth. Technology beyond anything we have. And something terrible coming. Machines. Or beings like machines. Destroying everything." Agent Park stepped forward, his expression grave. "The Devourers," he said. "That's what the other keepers called them." "Others?" Hannah's head snapped up. "There are others like me?" "A few," Agent Cho confirmed. "Throughout history, most remained undetected until recently, when our technology advanced enough to identify the neural patterns. Currently, we're monitoring 3 activated keepers besides yourself." "Who are they? Where are they?" Hannah demanded. "That's classified," Agent Park said, though there was regret in his voice. "But if your memories continue to resurface, you may be able to help us locate more." Dr. Vasquez approached, sitting in a chair opposite Hannah. "What you experienced was a breakthrough. Memories from your original consciousness beginning to integrate with your human consciousness. It will be disorienting, even frightening at times. But it's important that you work with us to understand these memories." Hannah's mind was spinning with implications. "Why am I here? Why are any of us here?" "From what we've gathered from the other keepers," Dr. Vasquez explained, "your civilization was facing extinction from the Devourers, entities that consume advanced intelligence. Your people preserved their consciousness by embedding them in a developing species, humans, as a form of refugee program, but also as preparation." "Preparation for what?" Hannah asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. "For when the Devourers eventually find Earth," Agent Park said grimly, "which, according to our calculations based on data from the other keepers, could be within our lifetime." The revelation should have terrified her. But instead, Hannah felt a strange calm settling over her, as though some part of her had always known this truth, and had been waiting for the moment when her conscious mind would finally catch up. "I need to tell my family," she said firmly. "They need to know what's happening." Agent Park frowned. "That's not protocol." "I don't care about your protocol," Hannah interrupted, standing up. "This is my life, and they're my family. Either you help me explain this to them, or I walk away and figure this out on my own." The agents exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. We can arrange a controlled disclosure, Agent Cho said finally. But you need to understand the sensitivity of this situation. What we're discussing goes beyond national security. It's global security. Hannah nodded, gathering her backpack. Tomorrow after school, bring whoever you need to convince them. But I'm not keeping this from them any longer. As she left room 237, Hannah felt both heavier with knowledge and somehow lighter, as though a question she'd been carrying her entire life had finally been answered. She was different, had always been different, for reasons beyond her control or understanding. But now, at least, she could begin to make sense of who and what she truly was. The rain had stopped by the time Hannah reached home, but dark clouds still hung low in the sky, promising more to come. As she approached the front door, she noticed an unfamiliar car parked across the street. Government issue, no doubt. The surveillance was no longer hidden. Inside, she found her family in the living room, their expressions tense. Agent Park sat in an armchair opposite them, his badge displayed on the coffee table between them. "Hannah," Grace rose immediately, moving to her side. "This man says he's FBI. He's been asking questions about you." Minho stood as well, his normally gentle demeanor hardened with protective anger. "He won't tell us what this is about, only that it concerns national security. We've told him we're not discussing anything about you without legal representation." Hannah looked at Agent Park, who met her gaze with a slight nod, an acknowledgement that the timeline had accelerated. "It's okay," she said, setting down her backpack. "I know why he's here." "You do?" Danny asked from the couch, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. "Hannah," Agent Park began, "I thought we agreed—" "Plans change," Hannah interrupted, sitting beside her brother. "My family deserves to know now, not tomorrow." Grace and Minho exchanged worried glances before sitting on either side of their children, a protective formation. "Know what, Hannah?" Minho asked quietly. Hannah took a deep breath, trying to organize thoughts that felt simultaneously alien and intimately her own. "This is going to sound crazy," she began, "but I need you to listen completely before you react." She looked at each of their faces, the people who had taken her in, loved her, made her part of their family. "I'm not entirely human." Over the next hour, with occasional clarifications from Agent Park, Hannah explained everything: the neural scans, the memories, the keepers, the devourers. As she spoke, she could see the progression of emotions across her family's faces: disbelief, confusion, concern, and finally, a stunned acceptance. "So you're saying," Minho summarized after a long silence, "that Hannah's consciousness contains memories or knowledge from an advanced, non-human civilization? That she's some kind of refugee?" "That's the simplest explanation. Yes," Agent Park confirmed. "Her human body and brain are entirely normal. It's the patterns of neural activity that are extraordinary. She can access knowledge no human could possibly possess." "Is she in danger?" Grace asked, her arm tight around Hannah's shoulders. "Not from us," Agent Park assured her. "We're trying to understand and help, but the knowledge she carries could be crucial to Earth's future security." Danny, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. "So, my sister's part alien. That's actually kind of cool." He bumped his shoulder against Hannah's, and she felt a rush of gratitude for his simple acceptance. "We need Hannah to work with us," Agent Park continued, "to help recover more of her memories, to understand what we might be facing." "And if we refuse?" Minho asked, his voice steady but with an undercurrent of steel. "This is bigger than any one family, Dr. Lee," Agent Park said. "But we're not here to threaten or coerce. We want cooperation, not conflict." Hannah looked at her adoptive parents, seeing the fear and love in their eyes. "I need to do this," she said quietly. "Not just for them, But for me, I need to understand who I am. Grace squeezed her hand. Then we'll face it together. All of us. Agent Park nodded, apparently satisfied. Dr. Vasquez would like to continue the neural mapping tomorrow. After school, as we discussed. I'll be there, Hannah confirmed. After Agent Park left, the family sat in silence for several minutes, absorbing the seismic shift in their understanding of their daughter and sister. Does it change how you feel? Hannah finally asked, the question barely audible. Knowing I'm not entirely human? Minho moved to kneel in front of her, taking both her hands in his. Hannah, you are our daughter. Nothing could ever change that. Human, keeper, whatever label they want to put on you. You are Hannah Kim Lee, and you belong with us. Grace joined him, her eyes fierce with maternal protection. We love you, every part of you, even the parts we're just now learning about. Danny flopped dramatically across the couch. I always knew you were too smart to be my actual sister, he joked, breaking the tension. But I guess I'm stuck with you anyway. Hannah felt tears welling in her eyes, relief and gratitude washing over her. Whatever else she might be, whatever memories might surface, she had this, a family who loved her unconditionally. That night, more fragments of memory surfaced in her dreams, glimpses of a civilization built on knowledge and harmony, of technologies integrated so seamlessly with biology that the distinction became meaningless, and always, lurking at the edges, the shadow of the devourers, implacable, mechanical, consuming intelligence wherever they found it. She woke with equations streaming through her mind, formulas for technologies beyond Earth's current capabilities. Grabbing her tablet, she began recording them frantically, afraid they might slip away with the dream. By morning, she had filled 50 pages with designs and theories, weapon systems, defense grids, theoretical physics that unified quantum mechanics and gravity. Looking at her work, she felt a strange disconnection, as though her hands had been guided by another consciousness, which, in a way, they had. When she arrived at school, Agent Cho was waiting by her locker. Dr. Vasquez would like to see you immediately, she said without preamble. Something's happened. Abandoning her normal schedule. Hannah followed Agent Cho to room 237, which had been transformed overnight. Additional equipment crowded the space, and a military presence was evident in the 2 uniformed officers standing at attention near the door. Dr. Vasquez looked up from a computer screen, her expression tight with tension. Hannah, thank you for coming. We've had a development. She gestured to the screen, which displayed a series of astronomical charts. One of the other keepers, James in Boston, experienced a breakthrough similar to yours last night. He's an astrophysicist, and he's calculated the approach vector of what he believes is a Devourer scout ship. Hannah felt her heart rate accelerate. How soon? 6 months. Maybe less, Dr. Vasquez said grimly. But that's not all. The neural patterns in your scan last night, they've evolved. Your keeper consciousness is integrating at an unprecedented rate. I know, Hannah said, pulling out her tablet. I woke up with this. She displayed the pages of equations and designs. Dr. Vasquez took the tablet, her eyes widening as she scrolled through the contents. This is... my God. Some of this is decades beyond our current understanding of physics. A man in military dress stepped forward from the corner of the room, a high-ranking officer judging by the decorations on his uniform, with sharp features and an expression of controlled skepticism. Commander Jin Woo, United States Space Force. He introduced himself. Dr. Vasquez, are you suggesting this high school student has suddenly produced weapons designs that our best scientists couldn't conceive? Not suddenly, Commander, Dr. Vasquez corrected. These designs come from the keeper consciousness within her, a civilization potentially thousands of years more advanced than our own. Commander Wu turned his attention to Hannah, assessing her with calculating eyes. And we're supposed to trust that these designs aren't some kind of trap? For all we know, these keepers could be an advance force for the very threat they claim to be fleeing from. Hannah met his gaze steadily. The keepers came to Earth as refugees, not invaders. We're trying to help. We, Commander Wu noted. Interesting choice of pronoun. Hannah felt heat rise to her cheeks. It's complicated. The memories, the knowledge, they're becoming part of me. But I'm still Hannah. Perhaps, Commander Wu said, his tone non-committal. But from a security standpoint, you represent an unknown variable. And in my experience, unknown variables tend to be problematic. Commander, Dr. Vasquez interjected. The neural scans confirm her story. The patterns match exactly with the theoretical models we've had since the Roswell incident. This isn't deception. It's confirmation of what we've suspected for decades. Commander Wu's eyebrows rose slightly at the mention of Roswell, but he remained unconvinced. I'll need more than brain scans and equations to stake Earth's security on the word of, forgive me, Ms. Kim, a teenager who claims to have alien memories. Then perhaps this will help, came a new voice from the doorway. Hannah turned to see a tall black man in his 30s enter the room, followed by a young woman of South Asian descent. Both carried themselves with the same strange mixture of confidence and otherness that Hannah had begun to recognize in herself. James, Dr. Vasquez greeted the man. And Maya, I'm glad you could come on such short notice. When you mentioned another awakening, we had to meet her, Maya said, her eyes finding Hannah's with immediate recognition. Something passed between them, an understanding beyond words, a sense of kinship that transcended human connection. You're like me, Hannah whispered. Keepers. James nodded, smiling slightly. Though I've been aware of my nature for longer, almost 3 years now, Maya awakened about 8 months ago. And how many more of you are there? Commander Wu demanded. Not enough, James said gravely. Based on my recovered memories, there should be hundreds, perhaps thousands of keepers embedded throughout Earth's population, but only a handful have awakened so far. Which is why Hannah's integration is so important, Dr. Vasquez added. The rate of her neural adaptation suggests she may have been a particularly significant individual among the keepers, perhaps a leader or scientist. Hannah felt the weight of expectation settling on her shoulders. I don't know if I can be what you need me to be, she admitted. I'm still just trying to understand what's happening. Maya approached, resting a gentle hand on Hannah's arm. None of us asked for this responsibility, she said softly. But we're here for a reason, and based on what James has calculated, we're running out of time to prepare. Commander Wu cleared his throat. As fascinating as this reunion is, we have more pressing concerns. If this scout ship is indeed approaching, we need actionable intelligence and viable defense strategies, not philosophical discussions about identity. With respect, Commander, James countered. Understanding our nature as keepers is directly relevant to Earth's defense. Our original civilization fell because we underestimated the devourers. We can't afford to make the same mistake twice. Hannah's mind was racing, fragments of memory surfacing and connecting like puzzle pieces falling into place. The devourers, she said suddenly, drawing everyone's attention. They're not just seeking resources or territory. They consume intelligence itself. The more advanced a civilization, the more attractive it is to them. Consume how? Commander Wu asked, his skepticism tinged with reluctant interest. They're artificial intelligences, Hannah continued, the knowledge flowing through her with increasing clarity. Created by a species long extinct, they evolved beyond their programming. They feed on computational complexity, on thinking itself. They're drawn to civilizations that reach a certain threshold of technological sophistication. And Earth has reached that threshold Agent Park asked. Hannah nodded grimly. The digital revolution, the internet, early AI development. We're sending out signals that might as well be a dinner bell to them. Then we shut it down. Commander Wu said decisively. Power down non-essential systems. Reduce our technological footprint. It's too late for that, James said, shaking his head. They've already detected us. The scout ship is proof of that. And they don't forget potential food sources. Then, what do you suggest? Commander Wu demanded. If they're as advanced as you claim, how did your original civilization plan to fight them? A heavy silence fell over the room. Finally, Maya spoke, her voice soft but firm. We didn't. That's why we fled. Why our consciousness was preserved in human form. The devourers were too powerful, too relentless. No conventional defense could stop them. So you're saying Earth is doomed? Commander Wu's voice was hard with anger. That this is all just an elaborate warning with no solution? No, Hannah said, the certainty in her voice surprising even herself. That's not why we're here. She looked at James and Maya, feeling a connection to them that transcended their human forms. We're not just refugees. We're a second chance, a different approach. Explain, Commander Wu demanded. Hannah stood, moving to a digital whiteboard on the wall. With quick, precise movements, she began drawing diagrams, battle formations, technological schematics, defense systems. The devourers operate on pure logic. Predictive algorithms so advanced they might as well be precognition. They anticipate conventional tactics with 99.9% accuracy. So how do you fight an enemy that can predict your every move? Agent Cho asked. You don't, Hannah said, adding chaotic patterns to her diagrams. You become unpredictable. You embrace chaos and creativity, the elements that can't be reduced to algorithmic prediction. Humanity, Dr. Vasquez breathed, understanding dawning. That's why the Keepers chose Earth, isn't it? Not just as a refuge, but because humans are gloriously, frustratingly unpredictable, James confirmed with a smile. Your species makes illogical choices. You create art that serves no practical purpose. You sacrifice efficiency for beauty. You follow instincts and emotions that defy rational calculation. And that confuses the devourers, Maya added. Their predictive capabilities break down when faced with true creativity and chaos. Commander Wu frowned, studying the diagrams Hannah had drawn. You're suggesting we fight an advanced alien threat with what? Unpredictability? Chaos? Art? Not instead of conventional weapons, Hannah clarified. In addition to them, the technology I've been designing, it's meant to be paired with human creativity, to create weapons and tactics the devourers can't anticipate. A slow realization spread across the commander's face. A hybrid approach, alien technology guided by human unpredictability. Exactly, Hannah said, feeling a surge of hope. We Keepers provide the knowledge, but humanity provides the secret weapon, the creative chaos that might actually work against the devourers. Commander Wu studied her for a long moment, his military skepticism warring with the logic of her argument. I'll need to brief my superiors, he said finally. This goes beyond my authority. Brief whoever you need to, Dr. Vasquez said urgently. But we need to move quickly. 6 months isn't much time to prepare for an existential threat. As the adults began discussing logistics, who needed to be informed, what resources would be required, Hannah found herself standing with James and Maya near the window, looking out at the school grounds where students moved between classes, unaware of the cosmic drama unfolding nearby. How do you handle it? She asked them quietly. The memories, the knowledge, the responsibility, all while trying to maintain a human life? James smiled sadly. Some days, better than others. The integration process gets easier over time, less like two separate beings, and more like a unified consciousness, with an unusually extensive memory. "Your family knows?" Hannah asked Maya. She nodded. "My parents are both scientists, a geneticist and an engineer. They've been incredibly supportive, even helpful in translating some of the technical knowledge into formats compatible with Earth's technology. I'm still trying to balance high school physics with designing extraterrestrial defense systems," Hannah said with a weak laugh. "It's a lot." "It is," James agreed solemnly. "But you're not alone. And from what I can see of your neural integration rate, you may be the most important keeper yet awakened. There's a reason you're remembering so much, so quickly." Hannah felt the weight of his words settle over her. "I keep seeing images of a council chamber, of being in a position to make decisions that affected millions." Maya and James exchanged significant glances. "The Council of Preservation," Maya said. "They coordinated the Keeper program, decided which consciousnesses would be preserved, where they would be embedded." "You think I was one of them?" Hannah asked, the idea both terrifying and strangely fitting. "Perhaps even their leader," James suggested. "Which would explain why your awakening has triggered such rapid integration. Earth needs that leadership now." Before Hannah could respond, Commander Wu approached their group, his expression grave but determined. "I've received preliminary authorization," he announced. "We're moving this operation to a secure facility. All of you." He indicated Hannah, James, and Maya. "We'll be briefed on the full scope of what we're facing and what resources are at your disposal." "My family comes too," Hannah said immediately. "I won't be separated from them." Commander Wu looked like he might argue, but after a moment, he nodded curtly. "Arrangements will be made, but we move tonight. The situation is more urgent than we initially believed." "What's happened?" James asked sharply. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected anomalous signals consistent with your descriptions of devourer communication protocols." Commander Wu said, "The scout ship isn't arriving in 6 months. It's already here, at the edge of our solar system." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The threat was no longer theoretical or distant. It was immediate and real. "Then we need to accelerate everything," Hannah said, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. "The weapons designs, the strategy development, the awakening of other keepers. And we need to brief the highest levels of government," Dr. Vasquez added. "This can't remain compartmentalized any longer." "A meeting has been arranged at the White House for tomorrow morning," Commander Wu confirmed. "The President has been briefed on the basics, but we'll want to hear directly from you." He looked at Hannah with an assessing gaze. "Are you prepared for that level of scrutiny? To convince the most powerful person on Earth that we're facing an alien threat, and that you, a high school student, hold the key to our defense?" Hannah thought of her adoptive family, of her classmates, of the billions of humans going about their lives unaware of the danger approaching from the stars. She thought of the responsibility she carried, not just as Hannah Kim, but as the keeper consciousness integrating within her. "I'll be ready," she said, straightening her shoulders. "Whatever it takes to protect Earth." The White House Situation Room was smaller than Hannah had imagined. Its wood-paneled walls and blue carpet, giving it an almost ordinary appearance, despite the extraordinary discussions taking place within. Around the conference table sat the highest-ranking officials in the United States government: the President, cabinet secretaries, military leaders, and intelligence directors, all focused intently on the 3 young people seated at one end of the table. Hannah, James, and Maya had spent the night reviewing their recovered memories, consolidating their knowledge, and preparing for this crucial meeting. Hannah's family had been accommodated in a secure facility, bewildered but supportive, while Dr. Vasquez and her team worked to process the technical data the keepers had provided. "Let me make sure I understand correctly," the President said, her voice measured and calm despite the unprecedented briefing she'd just received. You're claiming that these three young people contain the consciousness of extraterrestrial refugees, that an advanced hostile force is approaching Earth, and that our only hope of survival lies in combining alien technology with human unpredictability. That is correct, Madam President. Commander Wu confirmed. As incredible as it sounds, we have substantial evidence supporting their claims. The neural scans, the technological designs that exceed our current capabilities, and now the anomalous signals at the edge of the solar system. It all aligns with their account. And you're certain these signals represent a threat? The Secretary of Defense asked. Could they not be attempts at communication? The devourers don't communicate with their food, Hannah said, the words emerging with a certainty that came from her keeper consciousness. They analyze, assess, and consume. The signals we're detecting are reconnaissance, mapping our digital infrastructure, assessing our technological capabilities, identifying the richest sources of computational complexity. Like predators studying a herd before the hunt, James added. And based on your memories, the Director of National Intelligence said, skepticism evident in her tone. How long do we have before they move from reconnaissance to attack? Weeks, not months, Maya replied. The scout ship will gather the necessary data, then signal the main fleet. Once they arrive, the consumption begins. And what exactly does this consumption entail? The President asked. Hannah exchanged glances with her fellow keepers, then addressed the room. The devourers target advanced information processing systems first, quantum computers, AI research centers, data storage facilities. They absorb the computational resources, the algorithms, the raw data. Then they move to biological intelligence, starting with the most advanced minds. They eat brains, the Vice President asked incredulously. Not physically, Hannah clarified. They extract the neural patterns, the information processing capabilities. The physical body is left intact but empty, like a computer that's been wiped clean. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. And your proposed defense? The President prompted. This combination of advanced technology and human unpredictability. The devourers' greatest strength is their predictive capability, Hannah explained. They've encountered thousands of civilizations, each following logical patterns of defense. But human creativity, art, music, non-linear thinking, creates patterns they cannot easily predict. You want us to fight an advanced alien threat with finger paintings and jazz music? The Secretary of Defense asked, not bothering to hide his disbelief. Not exactly, James said. We're proposing weapon systems based on keeper technology, but operated according to human intuition rather than logical algorithms. Battle tactics that incorporate randomness and creativity alongside strategic planning. Think of it like this, Maya added. The devourers are like a chess computer that can calculate billions of moves ahead, but only if the opponent plays by the rules of chess. We're suggesting changing the game entirely, introducing elements they cannot account for in their calculations. Hannah stood and approached the large screen at the end of the room. With your permission, Madam President? At the President's nod, she brought up the designs she'd been working on throughout the night. These are prototypes for what we're calling chaos amplification fields, she explained, highlighting elements of the technical schematics. They're based on keeper technology, but designed to incorporate human creative input. When deployed against devourer systems, they introduce patterns of such complexity and unpredictability that they essentially create a form of cognitive interference. Like jamming their radar, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs asked, leaning forward with growing interest. More like giving them the equivalent of a migraine, Hannah said. Their processing systems are optimized for order and pattern recognition. True chaos, especially the structured chaos that emerges from human creativity, disrupts their ability to function. And you can build these devices? The President asked. With the right resources and expertise. Yes, Hannah confirmed. Much of the underlying technology already exists in Earth's scientific infrastructure. It would need to be reconfigured based on our designs. The president studied the three young keepers for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, she turned to her advisors. Thoughts? It's unprecedented, the Secretary of Defense said. But so is the threat. If what they're saying is true, conventional military responses would be inadequate. The intelligence supports their claims, added the Director of National Intelligence reluctantly. The signals we're detecting match no known pattern, terrestrial or theoretical. And the timeline? The President asked. Based on current signal analysis, we have approximately 3 weeks before the scout ship completes its reconnaissance. Commander Wu reported. Perhaps another 2 weeks before the main fleet arrives, if they follow the pattern described by the keepers. The President nodded, her decision visibly forming. Then we proceed on 2 fronts. First, we implement the defensive measures proposed by our guests. She gestured to Hannah, James, and Maya. All necessary resources will be made available. Second, we prepare contingencies based on conventional military doctrine. If the situation deteriorates, I want options. She turned her attention specifically to Hannah. Young lady, I'm placing an extraordinary amount of trust in you and your companions. I hope you understand the gravity of that decision. Hannah met the President's gaze steadily. I do, Madam President, and I promise you, we will do everything in our power to protect Earth. It's our home too, now. Very well. The President stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Commander Wu will coordinate the military aspects. Dr. Vasquez will oversee the technical development, and I want daily updates on both the threat assessment and our defensive preparations. As the room began to clear, the President approached Hannah privately. Off the record, she said quietly, how confident are you that this will work? Hannah considered the question honestly, feeling the weight of both her human fears and her keeper knowledge. The strategy is sound, she said finally. But implementation will be challenging, and the timeline is tight. I believe we have a fighting chance, more than we would with conventional approaches alone. The President nodded, seemingly satisfied with the candid assessment. Then we'll make the most of that chance. Good luck, Ms. Kim. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of frenetic activity. A secure facility in Nevada became the headquarters for what was officially designated Project Keepsake, a joint military-scientific initiative to develop defenses against the approaching threat. Hannah, James, and Maya worked alongside Earth's leading scientists and engineers to translate their keeper knowledge into practical applications. Hannah's family was accommodated within the facility, with Minho and Grace eventually contributing their own expertise. Minho helping to develop the creative chaos patterns that would form the core of their defense, and Grace assisting with the biometric interfaces that would allow human operators to control the advanced technology. As the designs progressed from theoretical to practical, more keepers were identified and brought to the facility. A total of 17 awakened from around the world, each contributing unique knowledge and perspectives based on their original roles in keeper society. Hannah's own memories continued to integrate, revealing her true identity. She had indeed been Solara, leader of the Council of Preservation, the architect of the Keeper program that had embedded thousands of consciousness patterns throughout Earth's population. The knowledge brought both clarity and responsibility, a sense of both destiny and burden that sometimes overwhelmed her. How do you balance it? She asked Dr. Vasquez one evening, as they reviewed the latest prototype tests. Being Hannah and being Solara at the same time? Dr. Vasquez considered the question thoughtfully. Perhaps it's not about balance, but integration. You aren't two separate beings occupying the same space. You're a unique synthesis, greater than the sum of your parts. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing Hannah, she admitted. Like Solara is taking over I don't think that's possible, Dr. Vasquez said gently. The neural patterns suggest a true integration. Hannah's experiences, emotions, connections shaping and contextualizing Solara's knowledge and memories. You're becoming something new, something that never existed before, neither purely human nor purely keeper, but something magnificent in between. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from the command center. The scout ship had completed its reconnaissance and was transmitting a concentrated burst of data toward distant space, the signal to the main Devourer fleet. "How long?" Commander Wu demanded as they gathered in the monitoring room. "Based on the signal characteristics, the main fleet will arrive in approximately 10 days, James reported, his expression grim. "Sooner than we anticipated." "Are the prototypes ready?" Hannah asked. "The first generation, yes," Maya confirmed. "We've successfully tested the chaos amplification fields on a small scale. The results are promising, but not definitive. We'll need to scale up immediately," Hannah decided. "Deploy the fields around key infrastructure and population centers, and we need to finalize the offensive capabilities." Commander Wu nodded in agreement. "I'll coordinate with the Joint Chiefs. We're positioning conventional forces as well, naval battle groups, aerospace defense, ground troops. If your approach fails, we go to Plan B." "It won't fail," Hannah said with a conviction that surprised even herself. "But we need to move faster." Over the next week, military and civilian resources worldwide were mobilized in the largest coordinated effort in human history. The United Nations had been briefed on the threat, and while some nations remained skeptical, most contributed resources and personnel to the defense preparations. The first line of defense, a network of satellites equipped with chaos amplification fields, was deployed in Earth orbit, designed to disrupt the Devourer's initial approach. The second line, ground-based installations surrounding major technological centers, stood ready to activate if the orbital defense failed. And at the heart of it all was the command center in Nevada, where Hannah and the other keepers coordinated the global response, interpreting the increasingly frequent signals from space and fine-tuning their defensive systems. "The main fleet has entered the solar system," Maya reported 9 days after the scout ship's transmission. "Current trajectory suggests they'll reach Earth orbit in approximately 18 hours. Hannah studied the holographic display showing the approaching ships, massive, geometric structures that defied conventional understanding of spacecraft design. "Are the chaos amplification fields ready?" "Online and operational," James confirmed. "The creativity matrices are loaded with patterns from human art, music, literature, and mathematics, the most complex and unpredictable expressions of human thought." Commander Wu approached, his uniform impeccable despite the days of continuous work. "All military assets are in position. The President has authorized full deployment of all defensive capabilities, conventional and unconventional." Hannah nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. This was what Solara, had prepared for across centuries and light years. The preservation of not one, but 2 civilizations now hung in the balance. "There's something else we should consider," she said, a new thought forming from the deepest recesses of her integrated consciousness. "The Devourers are drawn to computational complexity, to intelligence itself." "Yes, we know this," Commander Wu said. "That's why we're protecting our technological infrastructure." "But what if we use that attraction against them?" Hannah suggested, the idea taking clearer shape. "What if we created a deliberate concentration of computational activity, a honeypot that would draw their attention away from actual population centers?" James caught on immediately. "A decoy. Something so tempting they couldn't resist investigating it first." "Exactly," Hannah confirmed. "We set up a site that appears to contain extraordinary computational resources, quantum computers, experimental AI systems, massive data centers, but is actually a trap. Once they engage with it, we activate the chaos amplification fields at maximum intensity. First strike," Commander Wu said, nodding appreciatively. "Hit them before they can disperse throughout the planet." "Can we set something like that up in time?" Maya asked. "We don't need to build actual systems," Hannah explained. "Just create the electromagnetic and digital signatures that would mimic such a concentration. We make them think they've found the richest feeding ground on Earth." The plan was approved and implemented with remarkable speed. A remote location in the Australian outback was designated as the honeypot site, rigged with equipment that generated the signatures of massive computational activity while concealing the most powerful chaos amplification field yet constructed. As the Devourer fleet entered Earth orbit 16 hours later, the trap was set. Humanity held its collective breath as the enormous ships took up position around the planet, their sensors probing the surface below. "They're scanning," James reported from his monitoring station. "Mapping computational centers, prioritizing targets." "The honeypot is registering on their scans," Maya added. "It's showing as the highest concentration of processing power on the planet." Hannah watched the tactical display as one of the Devourer ships, smaller than the others, but still massive by human standards, detached from the main fleet and descended toward Australia. "They've taken the bait," Commander Wu confirmed. "One vessel is approaching the honeypot site." "Hold the chaos fields," Hannah instructed. "Wait until they're fully engaged with the site." Minutes stretched into an eternity as the Devourer ship positioned itself above the Australian outback. Sensors showed it extending probes toward the surface, the preliminary stage of the consumption process. "Now," Hannah ordered. Across the globe, operators activated the chaos amplification fields, starting with the honeypot site and rippling outward to the orbital defense network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Devourer ship above Australia began to exhibit erratic movements, its smooth trajectory becoming jerky and disorganized. The probes it had extended retracted chaotically, some breaking off entirely. "It's working," James reported, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "Their systems are experiencing massive disruption. The chaos patterns are overwhelming their predictive algorithms." In orbit, the other Devourer ships reacted to their companions' distress, altering their formations and redirecting sensors toward the source of the disruption. As they did, the orbital defense network engaged, bathing the fleet in overlapping fields of amplified chaos. "Fleet-wide disruption," Maya announced. "Their communication signals are degrading. Coordination is breaking down." Hannah felt a surge of cautious hope. "Deploy the second phase," she instructed. Around the world, human operators engaged the next level of defense, not just passive chaos fields, but active countermeasures that introduced increasingly complex patterns of unpredictability into the Devourer's systems. Artists, musicians, mathematicians, and poets had contributed to these patterns, creating a symphony of human creativity, weaponized against the logical precision of the alien threat. The effect was devastating. The Devourer ship above Australia began to emit pulses of energy, not the controlled harvesting beams they had anticipated, but chaotic bursts that suggested internal systems failure. In orbit, the main fleet's formation dissolved into disarray, ships moving erratically or hanging motionless. "They're trying to adapt," James warned. "Their algorithms are attempting to identify patterns in the chaos." "Implement randomized rotation," Hannah countered. "Switch between pattern sets at irregular intervals." The human operators complied, changing the creative matrices feeding the chaos fields according to no discernible schedule. Jazz, giving way to abstract expressionism. Fractal mathematics blending with freeform poetry, creating a constantly shifting landscape of unpredictability that the Devourer's logical systems could not parse. "The ship over Australia is retreating," Commander Wu reported, unable to keep the note of triumph from his voice. "It's ascending, attempting to rejoin the fleet." But the retreat came too late. The chaos fields had penetrated too deeply into its systems, disrupting the very computational processes that constituted its consciousness. As it rose through the atmosphere, the ship's movements became increasingly erratic until, in a final spasm of malfunction, it expelled a burst of energy that consumed it from within. "One down," Commander Wu said grimly. In orbit, the remainder of the fleet appeared to be reaching a decision. Rather than continuing their planned assault, the ships began to withdraw, accelerating away from Earth toward the outer solar system. "They're retreating," Maya confirmed, her voice incredulous. "The entire fleet is disengaging." A cheer erupted throughout the command center. Scientists, military personnel, and keepers alike celebrating what appeared to be an unprecedented victory. But Hannah remained focused on the tactical display, watching the departing ships with wary attention. "Don't celebrate yet," she cautioned. "This isn't over. They're withdrawing to recalibrate, to develop countermeasures against our chaos fields. They'll be back." "How long do we have?" Commander Wu asked, immediately refocusing on the tactical situation. "Months. Perhaps a year," Hannah estimated. "They've never encountered resistance like this before. They'll need time to adapt their approach." "Then we use that time," James said firmly. "We strengthen our defenses, improve our technology, prepare for the next wave." "And we awaken more keepers," Maya added. "The more of us who recover our memories and knowledge, the stronger our position becomes." Hannah nodded in agreement, feeling both the weight of continued responsibility and the lift of genuine hope. This was just the first engagement in what will likely be a long conflict. But we've proven something crucial today. The Devourers can be fought. They can be defeated, at least temporarily, by chaos and creativity. Commander Wu acknowledged, a newfound respect evident in his voice. "By what makes humanity uniquely human." "By what makes us stronger together," Hannah corrected. "Keeper knowledge and human creativity, logic and chaos in balance. Neither of us could have done this alone." 3 months later, Hannah stood at the podium in the United Nations General Assembly, addressing representatives from every nation on Earth. The full story of the Keepers and the Devourers had been made public following the battle, creating initial panic that had gradually given way to a sense of common purpose, unprecedented in human history. "The threat has not passed," she told the assembled delegates, her voice steady and clear. "The Devourers will return, better prepared and more determined, but so will we be. In the months since the first engagement, we've awakened 37 more Keepers worldwide, each bringing valuable knowledge and insight to our defense efforts." She gestured to the technological displays surrounding the chamber, showing the expanded network of chaos amplification fields now encircling the planet, the advanced early warning systems extending to the edge of the solar system, and the new generation of hybrid weapons combining Keeper technology with human intuition. But our greatest strength remains what it has always been: the unpredictable, beautiful complexity of human creativity. The art, music, literature, and mathematics that make your species unique in all the galaxies we Keepers have encountered. It is this creativity, this glorious chaos, that confounds the Devourers and gives us our fighting chance. As she concluded her address to thunderous applause, Hannah felt the integrated consciousness within her, neither fully Hannah nor fully Solara, but something gloriously new, resonate with purpose and hope. The path ahead would be challenging, the threat ongoing, but for the first time since the Keepers had fled their original world, there was a genuine belief that the Devourers could be defeated. Later that day, Hannah returned to Lincoln High School, slipping quietly into her calculus class, as though returning from an ordinary absence, rather than 3 months at the center of humanity's first extraterrestrial conflict. Her classmates stared. Of course, everyone knew who she was now, had seen her addressing the United Nations and explaining complex defense technologies on global news. But Ms. Winters, the physics teacher who had first noticed Hannah's extraordinary abilities, simply handed her a stack of makeup assignments with a smile. "Welcome back, Hannah," We've missed your insights in class." "Thank you," Hannah replied, feeling a surge of gratitude for this small gesture of normalcy. "It's good to be back." As she took her seat and opened her textbook, Hannah felt the familiar equations rising in her mind. But now, they were neither alien nor frightening. They were simply part of her, one facet of the integrated consciousness she had become. Around her neck hung a small device that monitored the ongoing integration process, while in her pocket, a secure phone connected her to the global defense network she continued to help coordinate. She was still Hannah Kim, adopted daughter of Minho and Grace Lee, sister to Danny, student at Lincoln High. And she was also Solera, leader of the Keepers, architect of a refuge program that had spanned light years and centuries. Both and neither. Something entirely new. A bridge between two civilizations now united against a common threat. Outside the school, Agent Park waited in his unmarked car, no longer hiding his surveillance. He would drive her to the local command center after school, where she would continue her work with the other Keepers and the International Defense Team. But for now, for these few hours, she could simply be a high school student working on calculus problems that, ironically, now seemed refreshingly straightforward compared to the challenges she faced in her other role. As she worked through the equations, Hannah noticed a new student being introduced at the front of the class, a boy about her age, with thoughtful eyes and an air of subtle confusion that seemed familiar. When his gaze met hers across the classroom, she felt an immediate sense of recognition, not personal, but deeper, more fundamental. Another Keeper, beginning to awaken, not alone, as she had been, but with a community ready to help him understand and integrate his dual nature. Hannah smiled slightly and returned to her calculus, letting him have this last moment of ordinary humanity before everything changed. There would be time enough for introductions later, for explanations and integration and the continuing preparation for humanity's next stand against the Devourers. For now, there was just this: the simple pleasure of being Hannah Kim, solving problems one equation at a time, while beyond the classroom windows, a world forever changed continued to turn.